Hello, welcome back. We're going to jump right in, continuing our analysis of Esoteric Psychology Volume 1 by Alice A. Bailey and testing the premises of Alice A. Bailey. Now we're going to look at the birth chart and how that correlates to the 7 rays. And in the last video, the thought that I was kind of lingering on in terms of what the first 3 rays, that foundational trinity, triangle, pyramid, mean. And for me, that means the self-actualization piece of Maslow's pyramid. And what that means for us is that our work is to attain that. And when we attain that, what do we get? We unlock certain gifts, certain abilities, certain powers, if you will. But the interesting piece about the whole thing is it closely aligns with the ability to be united versus the ability to be divided and broken down. And let me just show that clip really quickly, and then I'll jump right back. If this trinity, if our upwards triangle, this top 3 rays, this is theory, I'm thinking out loud, is in balance, then we can't be divided in the same way that other people are susceptible to division, right? But if we did want to turn our attention there and to focus on those things, we would become indivisible. You're solid because you stand on these firm foundations. You've got that triangle set, right? And it made me start thinking of prime numbers because I'm a nerd. So prime numbers, these things are divisible only by themselves and 1. What is the 1? And then you can start getting into your higher power if you want to break that down, which I do believe in a higher power. So I'm thinking that the only thing that can break me down is myself and my higher power. None of these other distractions, divisions, anything like that, none of that can break me down. I'm indivisible. These are the prime numbers. What they call the other numbers are composite numbers. They have different factors that can break them down. Isn't that interesting? There are different factors that can break down someone that is a composite. I just thought that was interesting. Moving forward, I just really wanted to focus in on this concept of breaking down the 7 rays. So this is saying that these are the divine traits, the origin of all things. And we move from first the very one, the one united self, the light source. Let me get another image of that for you here. The one is reflected through the prism or the trinity, and that allows it to be reflected out onto the surface level appearances. What appears to be solid and firm is that we are all these separate, divided, different shades of being, but in the beginning there was the one source. From that, moving into the 3, the Trinity, the Father, the Son, the Mother, and then from there into the 7, and then broken down into as many different parts as you can imagine. But important here is also to see that this is saying that the 7 rays influences the 7 psychological functions in all humanity, our will, feeling, thought, imagination, logic, passion, action, and that in turn gives us 7 energy types, 7 types of people. These are the primary traits that all people possess, whether they are dynamic, sensitive, mental, creative, analytical, dedicated, practical. I like here that this is the only one that really, or one of the few, transitions the word. So we have the idealist. This is a ray that is giving us the trait, the divine trait of idealism, but how it translates psychologically is in passion. So we're influenced by passion. This is very much like Mars energy, which we'll get to. And so that translates to, it would be a passionate type of person, but here it says dedicated. So it's a softer way of delivering that, because a lot of times this is also recognized as the religious ray. So we don't look at religious people primarily as passionate people. Passion, we have the connotation with kind of our lower level desires, right? But this is a dedicated being loyal, being dedicated, being devoted to an ideal is the energy of this 6th ray. And then the last is the practical types. And so if we look and test the premises of this, so this is saying that these are the basics of all things. Broken down from here is what we get all offshoots of every other type of person that can be. And so we're like, what are the types? How many different types of people are there really? Well, if we break it down one step further from the 7 rays, we looked at this chart a few videos back from the Living Light Essences website, and it gives us some qualities and some strengths and some indications or needs or traits to develop as pertaining to each of the 7 rays. But where do we see that further broken down even more is just in basic daily life. We have these myriad of different character traits of what a person can be. Just Googled some here, this one here, allfreeprintable.com. What is that over there? A person can be zappy. I wonder what zodiac that falls into. So yeah, different traits that a person can be, whether they're decisive, whether they're a generally neat person. Are they neutral? Interesting. Is a person noble? Are they very nurturing? As I'm reading these words, this is instantly picking up on corresponding zodiac traits. And so it's interesting that we list all these as if they're just blanket traits that each and every person could possess, but we're not really diving deeper into what makes each person more predisposed towards any of these specific traits. And again, here we see devoted, and that's interesting too, because we are saying we're testing the premises of all the human personality traits and all the different ways that a person can be reflected onto the surface of life. Does that all back up into these original 7 rays? Well, if we're looking at these different traits and what a person could be, we see right here, devoted. This is like 6th ray. And interestingly, like I was saying, with some of these other words, like the level of someone being very neat, that could be very Virgo traits. And the Virgo is part of the Earth category, which we're going to look at when we go down this rabbit hole of the next set of tabs that I've got set up to discuss with you. And so that neat and tidy and organized person could fold into our practical type or our mental or analytical. These are all buckets that the Virgo energy could move into, and we're going to look at why. So the main thing here that I wanted to show is that this is a depiction of us going very clearly from the many to a more concentrated few, and then backing that up, and I'll show that also with some of with all the positive comes the negative. We also have this grammar vocab site just listing out some negative personality traits. And these also fall into what we're going to look at, into the zodiac types, into astrology, and also into the rays, the positive, the negative, the polarity of what a person can be. So right now it is checking out that a person can be identified by any one of these buckets of the 7 rays and split out that way. But the point is, what's the point? The point is that it's not just a matter of chance whether you have a person that's pretty hostile, or they tend to be very selfish, or they tend to be very jealous. It's not just like that just happens out of nowhere. There's a reason why people have these same predispositions to be any of these traits. There's certain people who are predisposed to any of these traits. And what we're learning from the 7 rays is that it falls into these 7 major buckets, and those are further broken down and they are further built up, and it depends on which way you're trying to work. Are you trying to move more into your surface level division of self, or are you trying to unify back into your most powerful energy, which is like the sun, which is like the light source, which is like the original energy, deity, God, right? So this is where we're taking a lens and looking at all those little individual traits of what we can be, and figuring out really definitively why we possess them and why others possess what they possess. And the thing about the 7 rays for me that I thought I should test this premises in terms of an astrological lens is because they definitely do align with the zodiac traits. We talked about the 4th ray last time, and this is also someone that has a lot of that caring energy that could be very Pisces, mostly water sign. So we have Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio, and I'm going to look at that with the charts too, and we're going to see how each of these can be attributed to a system that can be checked, tested, and analyzed to see if it holds true in some kind of way that can give us a more concrete model of self and understanding ourselves and analyzing the world we live in. The world is full of people that we have to interact with, and we have to go through this life of going after whatever it is we're meant to do here, and we need to have more of a firm lens of how to go about that than just throwing a million different ways to be on a dartboard and just saying, oh, that's just the way I am. That's just how I am because I observed it, or my environment taught me that, or, I learned it from the TV or my family, etc. Because it is deeper than that. And I think we are not giving it the justice that it deserves. So taking these traits into another way of streamlining it. So right now, this is how we're living life. We're saying like there's no reason why a person has a tendency to be more irritable and judgmental or lacking assertiveness than the next person. It's just pretty arbitrary. It's funny because these good and bad traits, and these next two came from something called Mind Journal, so shout out to them. I'm definitely going to look into that after this and purchase this. I also explained in the last video kind of how I do this. What I do is I search for a lot of visual images that kind of depict or teach me or explain out the thought process of the premise that I'm analyzing, you could say. And so I was looking for the zodiac sign breakdowns and some of the good and bad traits of them to see if it mirrors this or if it can be folded cleanly into the 7 rays. And so this one's funny because we have some, you be the judge. The funny thing here, like you have Cancer, ghosting peeps. So this is obviously a funny little depiction of these things. But at the heart of it, what we see in astrology are the basic tenets of what we say are the traits, character traits, and growth points, if you will, needs to develop similar to our 7 rays chart. But in that instance, we're looking at 12 different things broken down. This is 7 different things broken down. And then as we see here, we're moving up to the 3 and then to the 1, unity consciousness. So this is all I'm just continuously showing this visual of how we're going from the mini back to the 7, to the 3 and to the 1. We are bringing ourselves up into our prime, stepping into our prime. That's another thing we hear about when someone moves into their prime. He's in his prime. We're in our primary numbers. We are in our top of the pyramid, our self-actualization, where we can unlock so many things through our natural gifts and abilities, and that comes from, again, knowing thyself. So looking again at these 12 zodiac sign attributes that we have, these traits and these abilities, and Aries is known to be very headstrong, but very also devoted, charismatic, and generous. Taurus are known for being reliable, but on the other side, we have different traits that a person has. But the thing that's a disservice is that most people think that all they are is their sun sign, which is basically your zodiac sign. Somehow everyone knows their zodiac sign, but pretty much nobody knows beyond that, right? Why do we know that piece, but we don't know anything deeper? The deeper part is what gives us so much more of a picture, because what we hear about is horoscopes most commonly, and so you'll hear that, oh, I was born in June, I'm a Cancer, and I look up my horoscope and it's a lot of nonsense. It doesn't make sense. So furthermore, I'm like, oh, that's kind of a stupid concept. I'm not going to ever look into astrology more than just maybe getting a cute symbol on a necklace or getting t-shirts that say Cancer from time to time, and that's about it. I think that it's a sad thing because we all have all of these traits within us, and that's the point. When we look into astrology, we understand that the level to which each of these are amped up or kind of muted is in a very structured and set way initially, based on our birth chart and how we were born. This is another sign visual, like I was saying, came from that Mind Journal, which is a book you can actually get, a little journal guide thing. So I haven't looked into it heavily, but from what I've seen from these things, I was like, oh, that's kind of an interesting concept. I like these visuals, so it might be something that would be a good self-study exercise or something, a guidebook, like all those little journals, guided journals that come out now and then, but this one seems to be kind of teaching us the stuff that we need to know. So it tells us the different months, the birth date months that lead you into one of those signs, what people generally know about their sun sign. But this is also breaking it down into positive and, if you will, negative traits. Negative traits are always just the polarity of what energy we're in. So we need to know what we're moving towards based on where we sit. Am I sitting more in this place? then I know that I need to move into that place. It's not about a judgment of self to say, oh, I'm, or to say that all Taurus people are jealous and possessive, because a lot of them we know are warm-hearted and loving and can be very comfortable and open with a person being their own person and doing their own thing. It just happens to be based on some factors that go a little deeper than just, again, the month you were born and the day you were born. How we look at that is going to be all unlocked through understanding a concept called the birth chart, and that's one of the things that I was super excited to dive into at a high level on this video, and in a process of showing basically one piece at a time is what these next series of tabs are. If you're already pretty familiar with it, this won't be anything new to you, but maybe you'll pick up something along the way. But ultimately, this is kind of more of an explainer for people who have no idea about the birth chart or the zodiac wheel, how that applies to understanding yourself on a much deeper level than just, say, a daily horoscope or knowing your sun sign. And it helps you to narrow down and understand exactly these traits and how these were assigned to you, and so that we can have a basis for identifying ourselves on one of these 7 rays, which takes us that much closer to jumping on to one of these top 3 rays, which is when we have soul recognition and are ready to step into unity consciousness, which is a fancy way of saying self-actualization.